Hello and welcome to the Big Ben Show with me, Lester Holloway and Alex Watson. We're only 7 days away from the general election, and David Cameron is getting angry, Ed Miliband is getting branded, and Nick Clegg is getting, well, a bit desperate really. But we've got a string of politicians coming in to give us their pitch to you about why you should vote Labour, Conservative or Liberal Democrat. So this is your time to call in and give them a piece of your mind. The number will be coming up on the screen shortly, but I'll give it to you now. It's 0208 808 0693. So do call in when you see or hear something that you like or don't like. We'll be speaking to Noshaba Khan, Labour candidate for Rochester and Stroud. We'll be speaking also to Rosilla Khanna, who's running in Workington, which I've just looked up, and it's somewhere in Cumbria, and Amna Ahmed, who's taking on Chuka Emuna in Streatham, so good luck to her. We'll also be speaking a little later on about history, African history, and why that is important. We've got a very special guest, Professor of African history coming, who will be with us in the studio in just a moment, and we'll be asking why African history matters and what difference does it make if we are more informed about African history. So that and more coming up. And Alex, we've got obviously a great show coming up, and I wanted to ask you as well, just raise the issue about Black history, African history, because we saw this week that work has started outside St Thomas's Hospital in central London on the Mary Seacole statue, which they're going to be erecting. But do you think that things like statue to Mary Seacole will make, how much difference do you think that will make?
I mean, I don't know how much. It's good that it's being erected. I'm really pleased about that, and I think these symbols are important, and we should have more of them, especially as our contribution is not often reflected in the society and around us and in our environment. So it's a good thing. But there is such a level of ignorance, I feel, with a lot of people that, you know, we walk past all these statues and we don't really know a lot of us what they mean or what they signify. Yeah,
well, half of them seem to be war generals that have inflicted all sorts of like General Smuts, for example, in Westminster Square, which I'd like to see perhaps pulled down one day.
The war generals are
replaced by somebody
everywhere.
else.
You know,
yes,
it's quite disturbing. So we need to rebalance.
Absolutely,
that. Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, Mary Seacole, is being included now in the national curriculum. During Black History Month, they talk about Martin Luther King, but isn't this sort of scratching the surface? What about real African history?
Well, we spoke about last week, didn't we? We had John Mayford from Olmecon talking about the statue of that lady in Stockwell, representing African and Caribbean women.
That was the first statue, wasn't it?
Which was beautiful. But I mean, I'm a person that studied history up to graduate level, and half of this stuff, half of the things I found out now for myself, I had no idea. You know, I was not taught it. And it wasn't on the curriculum. It wasn't on the curriculum all through my childhood. So I feel that it's very important to have a balanced view of history, or to be taught some of the things that are being omitted at the moment, or to try and find a way to disseminate that information, because it's empowering. And if it's not taught, it's disempowering.
Yeah, now of course there was a conference last Saturday which was called History Matters, and we're joined by the eminent Professor of African History at Chichester University, Hakeem Addy. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Nice to have you here. Now, there were some statistics that you unearthed, which show that there were only 3 black students were admitted to train as history teachers, and that history is the 3rd most unpopular subject amongst black undergraduates. But the fact that got me the most was that at present it's estimated that there were only 10 black PhD students in studying history in the whole of the United Kingdom. That's an extraordinary statistic. Why is that the case?
Yeah, and I should point out that we're talking about history here, not just the history of Africa or the history of Africans, but people studying history in general. Well, the conference that we had last Saturday was to try and look into some of these issues. Why is history so unpopular? Why are there so few black teachers? why there's so few people studying history at university level and PhD level. There seem to be a number of factors. One is that the history curriculum in schools and perhaps in some universities as well is very Eurocentric, as you've just been discussing, and this seems to put off a lot of young people. There are also issues relating to what is the importance of history, why does it matter, why should I pursue this as a career or even at A level or degree level, and both students and parents are unsure about why they should. And of course history is a subject which can lead into all kinds of careers, not just becoming a history teacher, but law, journalism, media, a whole range of things. And then I think there's just there are some things which we're not clear about. You know, we have roughly about something like 1,300 black undergraduates at the moment. That's undergraduates of African or Caribbean heritage who are studying history. The fact that only 3 of them generally per year are studying as teachers is like quite like astonishing figure. But from my own experience, I mean, when I left university, I applied to 2 different teacher training institutions. I was rejected by both of them.
Shocking.
So what we know is that the rejection rate of those history graduates or others going into teacher training is also higher than others in the population.
Yeah. Now we
So-
know that the contribution of black people in history has been somewhat missing, and this is part of the problem. But do you trust the state to teach African history?
So do I teach the...
Do you trust the state?
Well, I think
get this right.
I think it's the whole issue of what the national curriculum is in schools. Does it reflect the population of this country? Is it honest about the history of this country? And there's been a big struggle over that for many years. Sometimes there are advances and there are possibilities, but there's a lot of pressure on teachers. There's a problem with the kind of material which exists in schools. There's a problem with the Eurocentrism of exams and exam syllabi. There's the whole question of the training of teachers. Are teachers adequately trained to give this picture of the diversity of Britain's history and so on? So there are a whole range of problems that need to be tackled in order that we can then say, yes, our schools are equipped to just teach the history of the world as it is, which reflects the history of Africa, the history of Asia, the history of other parts of the world, and reflects the presence and activity of people of African origin, Caribbean origin, Asian origin in Britain, which is itself very often neglected.
I think you touched on an interesting point where you said, I remember a conversation I had with a friend who said, like, history, it's in the past, what relevance does it have? And I think there's a problem people have with thinking about the relevance of history, or also, like you said, the routes that studying history can take them on. They think, well, what can I do with history? A lot of times there's a lack of knowledge or imagination of what studying history may be able to do for you. I said I studied it to graduate level, but it was part of a social sciences degree, so it wasn't the full history package in that sense. But do you think that there's enough being done to actually promote history, regardless of whether we change the curriculum, change the syllabus and make it more reflective, just in general of what history can bring to the table?
Well, I think actually if you look at what's going on, you could say that history is recognised by government as perhaps being one of the most important subjects, because it's the subject which there's most struggle over. Nobody really struggles over how maths is taught or how geography is taught, but government ministers sit down and are concerned about the way that history is taught, and that should tell us something about the importance of it. In other words, history is that subject which helps us understand the world in which we live. Which helps us understand our place in it, which gives us a sense of identity in it. And you could say that for people of African, Caribbean, and other BME backgrounds, this sense of identity, sense of actually having an important place in the world, I think is very important. What we're often concerned with is the fact that we're written out of history. We don't see anything about people of African heritage. and that has a big impact on our young people in particular. So from that point of view, an honest approach to history is important. From the point of view of understanding the world in which we live, what's going on in the world, what's happening in Africa, what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in wherever, Iraq,
Sure.
what's happening in Libya.
Okay.
History is very, very important.
We are going to continue with the history discussion, but we're going to just break it up slightly because we do have a general election on. I know some people are suffering from election fatigue, especially after the Nigerian elections, followed by the British elections. But here we go. We have now on the line Noshaba Khan, who's the Labour candidate for Rochester and Stroud, and should be joining us on the line now from the Thames Estuary. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
First of all, the Labour Party has recently issued a BME manifesto. So tell us what your party has to offer African communities.
Yes, well, I think one of the things that we've recognised is clearly one of the biggest issues affecting BME communities across the country is low pay, and unemployment has risen substantially in the BME community in the last 5 years. That's one of the things we actually have to tackle, and that's why we're saying we're going to raise the national minimum wage to £8 an hour, and we're also going to get rid of zero exploitative hour contracts, which are clearly a problem. The other thing we want to do is I think it's time that we now started to review and do a comprehensive and formulate a comprehensive equality strategy for the BME community. So that's something that we want to look at if we're elected, is to look at the challenges and the barriers that are still affecting BME communities across the UK and how we can find solutions to some of those issues. So that will be really underpin our manifesto. We've also identified that there is a lot of work to do within the police force when it comes to BME communities. So we want to work with the police to increase ethnic minority recruitment. And also we're going to call an end to the stop and search. Well, we're not going to call an end to stop and search. We're going to call an end to the targets that are set for police officers when it comes to stop and search, because we know that disproportionately affects BME communities. I mean, there's a lot more. We also want to strengthen the hate crime laws that we have and ensure that we encourage BME participation in political life, which is one of the reasons why I'm standing, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I did have a read of both your main manifesto and also the BME manifesto, and granted there are quite a few issues and suggestions in there, like tackling the lack of racial diversity in the judiciary, in the courts, etc. But very little in relation to outcomes, what you really want to see at the end of 5 years of a Labour government. So when it comes to race equality, just describe us what Britain looks and feels like that is different from now at the end of a first Labour term.
Well, for me, I mean, I'm an ethnic minority myself, so for me, I think that we should be a part of every inter society in public life. We should be leading the way, and I'd like to see some, and we already have this, but I want to see more ethnic BME community members at the top of their field. You know, it's great. It's a great way to be able to look around and say that, you know, that this whole area is, this profession is represented by somebody.
So are you going to set targets? So to take, for example, the courts, you know, we have very few black High Court judges. Do you have a target that you want to achieve?
We haven't set a target, because I think what we want to do is, if we are elected, is to do a comprehensive review of where the challenges are, and therefore by setting a target, it doesn't give us the opportunity to see where the real issues are and how we would like to improve things. And also, when you set an arbitrary target, the focus becomes the target, whereas actually what I want to see is that we're supporting as many people in public life, but that it starts at a young age, that we are starting from the school age, encouraging people and showing them what they can achieve. And there's so many areas within society that we need to look at. I think this isn't just picking one part of public life and saying we want 50% more BME communities here. I think we've got to look at it on the whole and review it and set out a strategy from there.
Okay, this is Alex. Hi. I think everything that you're saying sounds good so far. They always say at kind of around election time, beware politicians bearing gifts, because we've heard a lot of this before. And to be honest, we had a Labour government with Tony Blair, and we've had lots of great people in great positions, and we've had lots of problems. So in terms of the targets that Lester's just talking about, you could look at it as a target, or you could look at it as something that you're trying to actually achieve, something measurable that we can say we are here now, and by the end of this 5 years we will have achieved this. Not looking at the target in itself, but giving yourselves a goal, something that you can actually, something tangible that we can measure success by.
Well, I think some of the issues that you picked up, that politicians make lots of promises around election time. Yes, I'm sure that is how a lot of people view it. But if you even look at the last 13 years of Labour government, a lot of things did change for the black and ethnic minority communities. We were the party that introduced the Race Equality Act, which has, which completely, some other parties would like to reverse that, and that's something that we will utterly uphold. But you've got to. Well, we know that there are still challenges ahead. I think we've actually come quite a long way in the last few years, but it's not enough. Labour has 16 black and ethnic minority MPs in Parliament, but that's clearly not enough.
The Tories are catching up on you fast though, aren't they?
We need to be doing more to encourage that, and I would love to have a representative, a Parliament that represents the country that we live in.
Yeah, David Cameron says that the Tories will get the first black Prime Minister.
Well, David Cameron has said a lot of things, but when it comes to actual action, that has come through the Labour Party. When you look at who introduced the Race Equality Act, who has the most MPs in Parliament, that is the Labour Party. And we are doing everything we can. We've got a record number of black and ethnic minority candidates standing in this election now.
So are you pledging that Labour will have the first black Prime Minister?
I hope so. Yes.
Okay. Just one quick question before I bring in Alex again. How does your offering to black communities differ from the other political parties?
Well, I think we are the ones that are very much focused on. We're the ones who have said very clearly that we understand that there is an issue. We understand that this needs to be challenged. And we have got, I know you said we haven't set any tangible goals, but some of the changes that we want to make, for instance, to stop and search.
So what do you have to say then about the...
heavy on hate crime, and the changes we want to make to the police force.
What do you say then to the Conservatives and what they've got to say to black communities?
Well, I'm not the Conservative candidate here, so I can't really...
No, I'm not asking you to speak for the Conservatives. I want your opinion about what you think they are offering.
Sorry?
I want your opinion about if you have anything. Do you rate the Conservatives' efforts to court the black community or not?
Well, I don't know what their effort is. I've seen very little about it.
Okay.
I've heard very little, other than David Cameron saying that he wants to be the first Prime Minister to have a black Prime Minister in this country, the first party. I've seen very little of their offer, and I'm here to talk about what we as a Labour Party have to do, and that's why I'm a member of the Labour Party, because I believe we are the party that still, when it comes to it, addresses the needs of the black and ethnic minority community.
Hi, yeah, it's me again. I think everything that you said, especially what you said that Labour Party is going to do, is quite laudable. I wish you'd been saying it for the last 5 years, then I might have have a bit more belief in it. But I want to go on to the immigration question, because I think that Labour on their immigration policy has been quite Tory in a lot of ways, if I can put it in a better way. They've kind of come out after the rise of UKIP. There's been a kind of anti-immigration sentiment from both the Conservatives and the Tories, and that feeds into, whether we like it or not, sometimes the issues that affect the black and ethnic minority community. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I agree that absolutely the immigration debate does have an adverse effect on black and ethnic minority communities. I'm a child of immigrants, so I know what immigration, the benefits it brings to this country. And I think actually when you look at it, the Labour Party has on a number of occasions talked about that. Now, we understand that there are challenges ahead, but when you look at our offer about what we're saying we want to do to tackle immigration, it is not in any way like the Conservative Party way of doing things. Our immigration offer is very much based on fairness. So we're saying that when people come to this country, they should put it in before they take out, and that's why we've got a benefit cap of 2 years on migrants coming to this country. We've also said that we want to stop exploitation in the workforce, so that when you have work agencies advertising abroad, they're not just advertising in one specific country. That's something that is offered to everybody, and that we tackle those people that are not paying the minimum wage, and those landlords that are exploiting people from abroad. And that's not fair on those people that are coming here from overseas, but it's also not fair on the people that live here.
Yeah, I'm looking...
It was the Tories that had their Go Home vans a couple of years ago, which I absolutely abhor, and that is not something the Labour Party in any way would ever do or endorse. And the language on those vans is something that my family remember from when they first came to this country, and I think it's vile.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I think a lot of people have been saying that sort of reminiscent of the language of the the bad days of the 1970s. I'm just looking at an article in the Daily Telegraph today, which says Ed Miliband has praised Russell Brand, the comedian and self-styled revolutionary, for saying that the very fabric of society is being torn apart by vested, powerful elites. How is Ed Miliband going to tackle vested, powerful elites?
Well, I think what we've said here is that Ed has been quite vociferous on this. He's been very consistent that we actually want something that is about fairness. And we know that at the moment, the way that things have developed in this country, we had a worldwide recession, and really the brunt of that is being felt by people who are normally the poorest in society, by things such as bedroom tax, which has really targeted some of our poorer families. And it's about saying that it's not about saying we hate big business or anything like that, but it's about saying that everybody should be putting their equal share. So it's about saying that if you're not paying your taxes in this country, we want to come down heavy on tax avoidance, then that is not fair, and it's something that we've got to tackle and that we've got to change. We think that people should be paid a decent salary, a decent wage, and we want to encourage a living wage, but increase the minimum wage in itself. And I think it's about trying to say that we cannot allow big businesses and big organisations to dictate the way that this country is run, and to allow people who are right at the bottom to suffer as a result of it. And Ed's shown that time and time again. I mean, he's talked about tax avoidance, he talked about HSBC. He was the only leader to take on the Murdoch empire when David Cameron was dithering. And that's what I think we're talking about when we say that.
Okay, thank you so much. The clock is against us, but that's quite a sizable chunk of the manifesto. So thank you so much for all of that. Noshaba Khan, Labour's candidate for Rochester and Stroud, and good luck in 7 days' time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very, very much. Professor Hakeem Adi, a number of things. She sort of rattled through quite a number of issues there, talking about the race equality plan that the Labour Party have. Any of this impress you?
No.
Why not?
Because I think we've heard it all before, to be honest. I mean, what struck me in particular was this alleged concern with low pay and unemployment and so on. And it's interesting that, I think, as Alex was saying, around election time we hear all kinds of promises. I think most people watching will have had the experience now of all three of the main parties for the last 20 years. We're under no illusions about what they can do, what they can't do, what promises they make, what promises they break, and so on. And I think that, for me, what divides the parties in the election are those that kind of stand on a platform of austerity and war, and those that stand on a platform against austerity and against war. And I'm sorry to say that I heard nothing in from the Labour candidate which really addresses these, which to me are the kind of fundamental issues. Are you a party which is for austerity, which, as I say, Labour and the other two parties appear to be, We've seen their policies over the last 20 years, or are you taking a stand against it?
I mean, in fairness, we didn't really ask questions really on austerity or the war to her, although we have talked about it with candidates previously in previous weeks. But are you not? I mean, she was talking about the fact that Labour Party are pledging to do an audit of race equality right across the board. They're going to be doing an investigation into race equality in the judiciary.
No, I'm not.
None of that.
None of that impressed me.
Right.
See, I think, I mean, I think this is reflected in what other people are talking about, particularly in the BME communities, that we've seen this and we've heard it all before. You know, if we look at the last election, nearly half the electorate didn't vote. Those who did, very few, a very small minority voted for the coalition, what formed the coalition parties. So that tells us something about elections, I think, what elections are about, that most people, in fact, aren't invested in them. Most people feel that they're actually excluded from, not only from the political system in general, but more importantly from decision making. And I'm quite an educated person. I would like to be a decision maker in my own country. I'm not a decision maker, you're not a decision maker, none of us are decision makers. And I think that most people want to make decisions about what kind of economy we have, what kind of health system we have, what kind of education system we have, and so on. And putting across on a piece of paper every 5 years for those who promise one thing and then break the promise when they get into power, it doesn't fill me with any enthusiasm. I think that those who are calling for a different kind of political system, I think are probably moving us in the right direction of thinking about these elections. Those that are calling for different kinds of political policies, different kinds of economic policies which actually favour the majority of people in this country, I think are much more appealing. And of course there are parties standing in the election which which champion those policies. Unfortunately, the big three parties and their candidates, generally speaking, don't.
Okay, well we've got another one on the conveyor belt of politicians vying for your vote before the general election next Thursday, and that is Rizila Khanna from the Conservative Party standing in Workington, which, no, actually we don't have her on the line yet. We're not quite sure exactly what's going on here, so we will, let me just say, do we have Rizila on the line now? No, we don't. So we don't have Rizila. So we'll definitely come back to that. Alex?
No, I was just saying it's a little bit like the state of the country, isn't it? No one knows what's going on and no one knows what's going to happen.
No, well, they do work very hard here at Ben TV, in fairness.
But the question surely is, as an election, why don't we know what's going on? Why don't the political parties, especially the established ones, tell us what is actually going on so that people can make an informed decision about how to cast their vote? The fact that there's disinformation about what's going on in the country, about the economy, about all these things, surely shows that there's something wrong with the whole electoral and party system.
Well, I remember watching a documentary and it was kind of talking about the last 30 years of politics and how we've kind of been infiltrated by this kind of system that, you know, and a lot of the media has a lot to do with it. And I'm looking at the Sun's front page here saying it's a Tory. So they're basically, you know, putting their card on the table as if we didn't know and saying that, you know, after a grueling 5-year wait and an appalling Labour, the Sun is proud to deliver our choice for the election a week from now, and that's the Tories. So to keep the UK economy on track, to stop the SNP running the country.
The thing about that front page, though, and we're just showing it online now, is that on the right we've got the English Sun, which is saying that if you need to vote Conservative to keep the SNP out, and then on the left you have the Scottish version of the Sun, which says vote SNP. I mean, this is a complete doublespeak, isn't it?
Aha. I mean, that's very, very interesting. Are they both Murdoch Press?
Yes, they're both the same title.
Okay, well, there you have it in a nutshell. It's just, it's a mugs game, isn't it? We're being mugged over, you know. And this whole thing about stop SNP
They
running...
both look like comics, actually.
yeah. You know, very creative, I will say. But
I would have been ashamed of that front page when I was at New Nation.
this is the whole problem, and
Yes.
this is the whole problem with our press. We don't have an informed populace, and we have now with technology and social media, we have a very fragmented populace in terms of their perspective and what their attention is held by. So, you know, I think most people have like given up the will to live with a lot of this, and you know, it was interesting to see what's his name, Ed Miliband, what's his face, Ed Miliband going to see Russell Brand.
Or Ed Miliband, as he's been
Yes,
known now.
you know, trying to do his man for the people bit. I thought that was quite interesting. But, you know, I've been watching a lot of Russell Brand over the last year and a half, 2 years, and I've seen the rise of his channel. And, you know, I watch and read a lot of things, but if you go to other countries, even if you go to America and read their press, you get more information than what you get here.
Well, I'm going to be asking Professor Hakeem Addy very shortly about his opinion of Russell Brand. But if you've got a view about any of the issues we're raising, then do call us on 0208 808 0693. We're going to take a very short break now, and we'll be back hopefully with the two other candidates from the Conservative and Labour Party, and more chat about politics and Black history, African history as well. So don't go away. We will see you on the other side now. Hello and welcome back to the Big Ben Show with me, Lester Holloway and Alex Watson. Just talking to Labour candidate just before the break, and in the studio to discuss and pore over the offerings or even the offal from politicians is Professor Hakeem Addy. Now we are now joined hopefully on the line by the Conservative candidate for Workington, Rosilla Kana. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. How are you, Lester?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you, and thanks very much for joining us from up there in the north somewhere. Now, we've seen the manifestos that came out a week or so ago. So tell our viewers what the Conservative Party is offering African communities.
Okay, just to go back on the African community, I mean, I came to this country 25 years ago from Kenya in East Africa. And I think one of the aspirations we have when we come over from different countries is to actually aspire to become much more successful and much more better. We want more training opportunities, education opportunities, job opportunities, and even if we're not academically brilliant, apprenticeship opportunities. I think we all aspire to become our best in life. We've seen a lot of struggle, we see a lot of lack of opportunities sometimes in the countries that we come from, and this country offers us a lot of opportunities. And if you look at the Conservative Party manifesto, it's full of good prospects for people who want to aspire and make the most of life.
Okay, I'll perhaps come on to some aspects of the manifesto very shortly. But in 2010, David Cameron, then leader of the opposition, wrote a piece in The Guardian where he said that he wanted to change Black Britain. How has Black Britain been changed in the last 5 years?
I think they've been, if you look at what we've done, what the Conservative Party have achieved, I mean, 5 years ago, I wasn't a politician, but I joined the Conservative
No, but you're a member of the community, though.
Yes, I was a member of the community. I used to work for the police force, and I've been working for the last 16 years for the police. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought of joining politics. But about 2 years ago, I had a wake-up call, and I realized that if we wanted to make a difference in the communities that we live in, and we wanted to make a difference for the right reasons, we should step up and join politics and be seen and be heard a bit more and be more positive role models. And 5 years ago, when David Cameron announced that he would be changing Britain, I think he's done a fantastic job. He's turned the economy around. He's actually created more potential opportunities and prospects for all of us. And I think it's up to us to take up those opportunities and actually become positive role models for our young people, for the future of this country.
Rosilla, did you say that you'd come to this country 5 years ago? Is that what?
Sorry, say that again.
Did you say that you'd come to this country 5 years ago? I think I misheard you.
Sorry, no, I came to this country 25 years ago.
25 years ago, okay.
25 years ago from Kenya in East Africa. But 5 years ago, if you'd asked me if I wanted to be a politician, I would have probably said to you no.
Okay, well, after the last election, or before the last election, we see a lot of what we're seeing now with David Cameron. You know, I think he went down to South London and was courting, you know, the black and ethnic minority communities. And you say that in the last 5 years, a lot has been done, a lot has changed. But I don't know where you sit economically, or, you know, I know where you sit politically, but from where I sit, I don't necessarily see all those changes. And I see, we see that mostly black and ethnic minority children cannot get jobs. We see them being pushed out of the workforce, and this is all ramped up within the last 5 years. Have you not seen that?
No, what I will tell you is the economy has changed. It's growing, it's becoming better and far more better. There's more job opportunities and prospects nationally. But we need to, as a community, step up as well. We need to do more. And if our kids on the streets, the black and ethnic minority kids, are not having jobs, we need to look at the local councils. And we need to be more proactive in local councillors, recruit more councillors and actually.
Okay. I mean, we're quoting.
What about those people that had jobs? What about those people that actually had jobs at the start of this 5 years that now don't have jobs, that were already in employment? And I understand what you're saying, that we need to be empowered. But and it's not, I don't think it's any point Conservatives to keep saying that the economy's improved, because that's not true. That's just not a true statement that you're making. And this is, I think this is what we're getting. We're getting this kind of, the economy's improved, there's more jobs. And I'm like, which planet are you guys living on?
No, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. 2 million jobs created over the last 5 years. And if you want to see how the economy's improved and how it fits your pay packet, if you are working, in 2010, you could only take £6,500 tax-free. Now you can take £10,500 tax-free home.
Yeah.
That is an improvement. That is more money in your pocket.
But I think
and
that.
I appreciate what you're saying about jobs. We have created 2 million jobs. The aspiration is to create more and have more people working. If you look at the manifesto, the concentration area is 16 upwards. We are trying, in the manifesto, we are creating a support mechanism for 16 to 17-year-olds where they will have more support from job centre advisors who will try and get them into opportunities. And also we're creating, young people can now buy their first homes. Young people have more opportunities.
Rosilla, I don't think it's in dispute really that there's been 2 million or so. I think it's just 1.8 million extra jobs that have been created in the last 5 years. But I think that really what was behind Alex's question is that this hasn't fallen equally, that the austerity squeeze on public services has actually disproportionately seen black and ethnic minority workers lose their jobs. There is discrimination within the private sector, which is where most of the jobs have been created. And it's about addressing that issue of disproportionality, that extra jobs created doesn't mean that black and ethnic minority communities are equally going to be getting those new jobs. So what are you going to do about that?
Well, the whole point of getting into government is actually to create opportunities for everybody. I see the Conservative Party seeing more equal opportunities. We have promoted more people from communities to come forward. I mean, somebody like me, 25 years ago, never have been able to join politics. I have been given that opportunity. I had to go through the national assessment. I passed that. I've been given an opportunity. And I feel we should create more positive role models, and we should work for our communities. We should try and aspire more and empower us to be able to do more. And I don't have the figures to hand as to how many people, but I think the austerity measures have hit the whole country, not just a proportion of the community. If you look at the police force, they've had to cut numbers. Local authorities have had to cut numbers. I can't disagree that it's only one section of the community that have faced the austerity measures.
Okay.
Well,
And that's only because
perhaps
of
you
the
need
situation
to,
that this country was left in 2010.
perhaps
We
you
had
need to
no
look at
money,
the facts,
and
Rosilla.
David Cameron didn't get up in 2010 one morning and decided, here, I'm going to slash everything.
Can I say something? I appreciate everything you're saying, and perhaps you should go and look at the statistics, because the statistics bear what we're saying out. The other point is, it's quite insulting when people say that people from those communities should do more, and that we don't have role models, because we're very hard-working people, very proud people, and we do work hard, and we'd be discriminated against. So, but this whole rhetoric that the people that are somehow being discriminated against are somehow causing their own misery is quite disturbing, and I'm fed up of hearing it, to be honest. But I appreciate what you're saying.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree that there's no discrimination. There's discrimination all over the world, not just in this country. It's all over the world, basically. Everybody has personal prejudices. They may not be born with it, but we all sort of grow up with personal prejudice. And I think what we have to recognize is this country gives us the opportunity to overcome those prejudices and actually become aspirational role models. We need more positive role models. And I keep on saying this again and again, that for young people, we need to become mentors for society. I would love to see more positive role models step up and actually in politics as well, and encourage young people that if you want to have a voice, if you speak up against what you feel is prejudice or discrimination, we need to be more active democratically. We need to have more of a voice. And I think that's what we need to actually encourage. And I have seen some really good role models coming up. I was in Warwick, and I saw somebody who was very, very promising. And I hope he gets in as a Conservative candidate, because he'll be an inspirational role model for young black people. And I think if we were to be totally honest, if we keep on thinking that because of discrimination we won't go any further, we will not be able to create hope for our young people.
Okay. We have to leave it there because the clock is against us, so we'd have loved to continue this discussion for a very long time, but I appreciate you taking time out from the election campaign to join us. Rizila Khanna, the Conservative candidate for Workington. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, please, if any of the viewers out there want to know about my journey and how I got into politics, and if anybody needs any support or help, try and...
look you up, Google you. Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you very much. Okay, bye. Professor Hakim Adi, what's your take on what you've just heard from the Conservative candidate?
Well, it's almost amazing in 2015 that a candidate for election can kind of be talking about kind of people doing more for themselves. I mean, this is going back to sort of Victorian times, Victorian values and so on. I mean, the idea that individuals can create jobs, or individuals can create a health service, or individuals can deal with low pay is just complete nonsense.
But we are an aspirational community, and this is what the Conservatives are tapping into, the fact that we don't want to get help. Obviously, we want the state to be fair. We want to be a non-discriminatory, non-racist system. But ultimately, we want to make our own way in life.
Well, in fact, this is not actually how the world operates, and then this is completely at variance with reality. The fact is that we live in societies which are highly developed societies, in which, as you say, there are a lot of people who work very, very hard and create the wealth of this society. So it's interesting that none of these politicians ever talk about this wealth which is created, how much it is, or how it's divided, or who has first claim on it. But the fact is surely that those who create the wealth should have first claim on it. So the working people of Britain should have first claim on the wealth, in which obviously black or minority people are a big percentage of that.
Okay. Well,
but in fact it's divided in a completely different way, and then we're told that there's inability to create jobs, inability to do all these things, and this is just complete nonsense.
Well, perhaps this is a question that we could ask the next candidate on the line. Are coming thick and fast. Hopefully on the line we should have Amna Ahmed, who is the Liberal Democrat candidate in Streatham. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Lester.
Thank you very much for joining us. So you're taking on Chuka Umunna there in Streatham, where you're in second place at the moment. We've had on just early on in the show the Conservative and a Labour prospective parliamentary candidate. So they've been giving us their pitch to African communities. What's yours?
So my pitch is that the Lib Dems, we believe in the slogan is opportunity to everyone, and it's about a fair.
Okay, that's the slogan, but what are you offering?
What are we offering? What we're offering is to provide a society where Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities, and myself included, actually, are allowed to play a full part in society by removing some of those barriers and understanding discrimination as well that we have for being a full part of British society. There are many barriers that I see, and those barriers, unfortunately, they exist in health, they exist in justice, and they also exist when it comes to different aspects of our legal system.
Give us an example about what the Liberal Democrats propose for the next 5 years.
So one of the things that's really important to me is personal tax allowance. So basically, the first £10,600 that you earn over the course of this Parliament, it's been a Liberal Democrat pledge that we brought in, it is now tax-free. And what we're pledging for next time is to raise that to 12,500. So even some of the lowest paid workers in this country may be taken out of tax altogether. And in my area, it's benefited thousands of people. This is something that's really important to me, and you've got to start from the very bottom. You've got to make sure that the most vulnerable people in society are being protected and also being allowed to participate. We shouldn't be taxing those who earn the least.
Okay, so you're saying the personal tax allowance should be is expanded to include more people from lower wages. How do you feel then about this equal society that you claim desire, the Lib Dems desire? How do you feel that the tuition fees have helped create a more equal society by marginalising lots of people from not being able to access education?
Well, the thing is, I would disagree that we are now in a situation where people are marginalised, and I'll tell you why. Tuition fees, I know that it's been a problem. It's not something I personally agreed with, and I think it's something that a promise that we were not able to keep. And Nick Clegg's apologised for that. I can apologise for that as well. Initially, after the new increased fees came in, there was a dip in university applications, but you'll be surprised to hear that record numbers of Black, Asian, minority ethnic youth are now attending and applying to university. You no longer have to start paying when you start earning £15,000. It's now been raised to £21,000. Without the Liberal Democrats in this coalition government, if it were a Conservative-only government, their plans were to remove the cap entirely so universities could charge whatever they wanted. So that is something that we stopped, making sure that there was a cap.
And just on universities, Amna, because I know that also the Liberal Democrats extended the period in which the tuition fees have to be paid back. But there is another issue here, which is about which universities Black students go to. Statistics have been coming out regularly showing how few, particularly British-born Black people, are going to the red brick universities, to the Russell Group universities. They're going to the old polys. What needs to be done to change that?
I would agree with you, Lester. I'm certainly in the minority. So I attended a red brick. I'm from Pakistani background, and I was shocked actually coming from London at the lack of diversity. And that's something I personally felt. What needs to be done, and the Lib Dems have promises as well, is to work with universities to make sure that they are targeting the right groups. But it's also not just about university in itself. It's about making sure that children have the right start in education from the very beginning to make sure that you can get to that higher education level, because there is a problem there. There's a disparity. One of the things that we've done, which I am really proud of, has actually, in my area, it's 40% non-white. And so we have many, many children and families here who are benefiting from extra money that's gone into schools to help the most disadvantaged. And I think you have to start at the very beginning. You have to give people the opportunity, and children particularly, from the start. And one of the pledges that we have is to protect education funding from 0 up to 19. That goes from...
Unfortunately, Amna, the clock is against us. So I did want to pursue the issue about the axing of the educational maintenance allowance, which has affected Black students disproportionately. But we didn't get there, unfortunately. But thank you so much for joining us anyway. That's Amna Ahmed, who's the Liberal Democrat candidate for Streatham. There. Professor Hakeem Adi, we're slightly running out of time, and unfortunately we haven't got much time to discuss, because I want wanted to come back to African history, but your reaction there, obviously you've heard now representatives from all the three parties. What's your take on the Liberal Democrat offer to African communities?
Well, as I said before, they all sound very similar to me, to be honest. And I think the fact that the Liberal Democrats are equally able to go into a coalition with Conservative or with Labour, like, demonstrates the Westminster consensus that exists between the three big parties. I mean, I think on the question of tuition fees, I mean, why should there be any tuition fees? I mean, if countries like Germany can provide higher education without tuition fees, why is it that Britain is unable to
Okay,
do
if you
so?
had to, I know we haven't got much time, if you had to vote for one of them, you know, because we've got an
You're
election
going to put a gun to my head?
I am.
I'm a dead man then.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Okay. Just very, very briefly, in a nutshell, because we're just running out of time.
Oh.
If you had a gun to your head,
I'm dead.
okay.
There you have it.
There you have it. It's been a real pleasure having you in the studio, Professor Hakim Adi. I wish we had double the time to discuss these issues and also come back to Black history. But do check out and look at, join him on Facebook, and you'll get notification of other events on African history coming up. Just time to thank the candidates who've joined us so far for a grilling. Noshaba Khan from Labour, Rosilla Kana from the Conservatives, and Amna Ahmed from the Liberal Democrats. You've been a fantastic audience. We'll be back on polling day next Thursday, 1 o'clock. So stay tuned in for that. Have a great week.